Joseph, welcome to the webinar. Joseph
David, welcome to
Doods.
the webinar. Yeah, thank you very much. A
Nice,
warm welcome from
nice
my
to
side.
yes, it's nice to be
Yeah,
here with you. Welcome
thank you.
everybody. Yep, this is going to be 5 great new features in P5 version 7.3. I'm David Fox. That's Joseph, and we've got lots of stuff to tell you. So let's get going. 5 new features in today's webinar. We're going to talk about parking queues, saving selections, job log downloads and file deliveries, job history search, volume inventories, and some other miscellaneous stuff that takes us beyond 5, but 5 was a catchy headline. So, parking queues. I'm mostly going to illustrate these new features by showing you, but I have some slides as well, which might help people that are looking at the slide deck. So parking queues allows you to better manage your resources in a busy environment where people are doing a lot of archiving. What you can do with parking queues is force users not to put their restore and their archive jobs. This is probably most useful with LTO, where you have a limited number of LTO drives in your tape infrastructure, and therefore, if there's a lot of archiving and even more important restoring going on, where company needs to get access to certain files quickly off of tape, it allows you to choose which jobs execute in which order. So if you've got lots of people sending restore jobs, they go into a parking queue, and then an administrator user can decide which ones actually execute in what order. So it puts a kind of middle queue in the way of jobs actually executing. Let me show you what I mean. So I've got a P5 7.3 installation here. So you see version 7.3 build. This is available to download on Archiware's website right now. If we go into the archive module at the top and then down to advanced options and look at our users down here, then I created this user called Peter Smith. Now, Peter Smith can't be trusted. He's always sending restore jobs all day long. So what we do with him is we put him, we don't let him execute directly to the working queue, which is the normal queue as you would understand it with previous versions of Archiware. All of his archive jobs and restore jobs go into the parking queue. So what does that mean? It means that if I log in a separate private window to the same server as Peter Smith with an underscore and his password, then he might come in here and start doing, I'm going to do an archive job from him. So he wants to archive this hiking folder. So I'm going to hit the archive button to send that job. But the job doesn't start straight away. So if we go back to our admin user and look at the job monitor, we can see Park's jobs at the top, and we can see his hiking folder archive job is sitting there. It's not running yet. Now this Park jobs section at the top is switch off and onable. So if you don't tick the box, then you get the standard P5, which is scheduled jobs at the top. So scheduled jobs is showing us what's going to run later today. But if we want to look at parked jobs, we click here, and then we see that we have one parked job. There might be several parked jobs, in which case they'll be listed in the order of the job number. So you'll see the sequence in which they were submitted, but that's not necessarily
David,
the sequence that you want to run them in. Joseph?
maybe you could start a second one to see that we can choose the order, because this is new now. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if I can send a restore job. I don't
Yeah.
have access to the index. No, I'm not going to do that because I don't see the right index. So I'm also going to just send another small folder, these two as an archive job, and submit this one as well. And then my queue in the job monitor window now has both jobs in it. So they're both sitting there, 79 and 80. That's the order that they were submitted. I could spin that round so the newest one is at the top. And then I can choose one and hit start, or I can remove. So I can remove a job that we decide we don't want to run, or I can start this job and then it's running. So that archive job is now running. And I can also run this one. So then we have one job pending. Oh no, the first one finished. So you see the first one finished down here, 1806, and now the second one's running. So yeah, that's it. It's something to allow busy archive environments to have a better control over the execution of jobs. It's often the case that there's a tape library with 50 slots, 2 drives. Restore might run for a while, ties up the hardware. So this just makes it's a nice little feature to have to make life run smoother. Okay, so let's go on to our slide deck. That was parking queues. So now we have saved selections when archiving and restoring. Again, there's a slide, but it'll make more sense if I show it to you. So there are 2 places in P5 where you get to build a selection. The first one is when you're manually archiving and browsing file systems like this folder with the stock images inside. And I have this button down at the bottom, add to archive selection. So if I want to archive my biking folder, I can add that to the archive selection here, and then I can add another one, and so on until I've got the right folders that I want to archive. Ordinarily, you would then, when you're ready to archive, you hit the archive button at the bottom, and that still works just as before. But at the top, you see some new things. You see a folder called biking in a drop down. So this is now where, by adding these folders to the archive selection, we've created a named archive selection called biking. Takes the name of the first folder that you added. Now, whilst I'm getting this list of folders ready to archive, maybe somebody comes along, again, it's the busy archiving environment, and they say, hey, forget about that, we need to archive these folders real quick. So what I can do with the buttons at the top here is I can create a new empty archive selection with the green button, and then I could go adding some different folders in here. So you see that, again, it takes the name of the first folder that I add. But now I have 2 archive selections. So I have my biking archive selection and I have my miscellaneous archiving selection. And I can pick either of these and continue editing it. So I could maybe just put some JPEGs into this one. And I can go back to this one and I can do something, put the hiker JPEG in there. And they just exist independently of each other. When I'm ready to actually archive one, I hit the button and that will execute that job and archive those folders. The button with the red X will just clear and delete one of those. So now I just have the biking archive selection. So there we go. And the other place that this is used is when restoring. So this was in archiving, manual archiving, but same deal applies if I go to my archive index and look where I have some data. I currently have no selections in here. So I could come in here and I could add some movies to my archive selection. So now I have an archive selection taking the name of the first movie that I'm archiving. I can make this a bit wider so we see more. I can create a new archive selection. I could go and add this folder, create files, and then again I can flick between them and I can build my restore selection. I think this is particularly useful when restoring because people will be browsing through indexes, finding specific things, may take a while to find them, and then it might take a while to build that restore selection, but at the same time you might want to do a separate restore, so this allows that to happen. Every user gets to have their own independent restore and archive selections, and yeah, that's about it. Anything to add there, Joseph?
It's a perfect feature. Yeah.
Perfect feature.
I love
like
it. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good one. So it's a little user interface nicety, I think, that one. So the slide, just basically shows the same deal there. Next, we're going to look at job log downloads. So this is something that shows up in the job log section of P5. So let's go take a look. So if we go to our job monitor, there were a couple of archive plans that we just ran. So we can see those down here in finished jobs. Anybody that's familiar with Archiware will know what a job log is. So it's this window which describes a job that ran, when it started, when it finished, what it did in some detail. So you see now we have a new section, download, And in the download, you can download the job log or the job inventory. So the job log, if I click on it, is a text file that contains, if I just pull up my Finder here, so in my downloads folder here, this is the job log. It's a text file which has the same information as the job log window, but it's in a downloadable plain text format. And then the other option is the job inventory, which again downloads as a tab separated file. Looks like this. I'll open it in the Mac spreadsheet app so we can see the columns. So you can see this was an archive of just 5 files. And the job log, the job inventory, tells me about each file and the size of the file, the volume. That actually we've got some funny breaks here. I don't think it's used the tabs to as the delimiter. So just a bit strange because I think it was doing earlier. But if I just show you it as the text file, because it's just a tab separated file, grab the right corner, you can see that
the spreadsheet for the numbers from Mac is recalculating the double pointer separator.
yeah, I think you're right, which is a bit strange because I think it was using tabs in the webinar
This is
earlier.
normal
So
for Apple, yeah.
it's normal for Apple, yeah. So these are tabs here. So yeah, you can see the fields in the tab separated file are the full path to the file that was archived, including the folder, and then the size. And then for the files, we're calculating a hash, which is included in here. And then this is the volume ID or the tape that the file is on, and this is the pool that we use to do the archiving. So the inventory, yes?
So you could maybe show where to configure this, because maybe some people don't know how to configure this.
Yeah, so this is configured, this inventory information per job is configured in the archive index. So if we go to the default archive index, which is the one that we were just using, under the additional options tab, you've got this tick box to switch this on, and then you can choose from all of the fields that exist in the archive index. You can choose which ones you want to have show up in this inventory file, and then those will be available once you run a job in the inventory, which is generated and downloadable from, just to go all the way back to the start, from the job monitor window where you're viewing the job, or the job history window, which also allows you to view all the jobs in chronological order that you've been running on your system. So like I can click on this one and get a job inventory for that one, which will again download and be visible here. And this one has got a few more files in it, so you can see what's going on. Also, I should point out that this is the checksum or the hash for the file. So this is generated from the original file that was archived. This is also configurable in the pool settings. So when you're archiving, one of the things that you can configure in your pool is the type of checksumming to use for verification. And there's a few different ones in there. So yeah, we're getting the XX hash 128 because this is the one that's selected by default in archive pools because it's the fastest one to generate for verification of archive data. So yeah, that was the ability to download both the information about the job. Sorry, I'm jumping around a lot. The job log and the job inventory directly downloadable via the job log windows. So that's that one. And my slide nicely illustrates what's going on there as well. And then we've got job log file delivery. So actually what's going on here is we're talking about 3 different ways to deliver job logs. So job logs are obviously visible in our web admin interface, but in terms of delivering them outside of P5, we originally supported our email delivery, which is still available. And you can have these job logs arrive in your inbox and you can have the inventories as attachments to those emails. But this requires that you've got email delivery set up. So if you're using Google for your corporate email, then you need to have P5 delivering emails into Google or into Microsoft 365. quite tricky to set up these days with security getting more secure. So a lot of customers aren't using email delivery. So what we've added in this release is the ability to download the job logs via the job monitor and history windows, and also deliver a file to a location of your choice on a per user basis is the third mechanism for getting access to those job logs. Because it might just be that you want to collect all of those inventories for everything that you're archiving in a folder just to have it, or maybe to push it into a database or to implement some other system. So the file delivery is something which is configured next to the email delivery. So this is per user. So here we've got our Peter Smith, and then everything that's not in the red box is stuff that's been there for years. So this is the email delivery, where you can choose what kind of notifications you want to get and the email address that you want them sent to. But now you can specify a client and a folder. So you can deliver those job logs to any client that's configured with your P5 server. So let's just show you what I've got set up in this demo. So if I go to my admin user, which is the current user that I'm using to show you this, and under notifications, you see that I've got a client called Mac and a path to this folder on this Mac. So it's called log delivery. And you'll see that this has already been working because the jobs that we've been running have already generated the job log and the inventory files in this folder. So the Mac I'm actually running my P5 server is on a Linux host, and the Mac that you're looking at for this presentation is a client of that P5 server. The client is called Mac, and this is the folder on my desktop. So now every time I run a job, so if I run another archive job of something small that won't take very long to run, just archive the sports folder, then the job will run, and then in this folder we'll get our log and inventory delivered just as that job completes. So now you can have those things delivered wherever you want, to whatever host you want. There they both are. 1818 is the current time here. So there's my job log, and there's my inventory of what we just archived with those fields that were selected in the archive index. So yeah, we've made it much easier to keep track of what's been running by delivering these files anywhere that you want, either via email, by downloading through the web interface, or just dropping files at a location. Well, I know of one customer that's looking to do a Slack integration with this, so that they'll pick up these files with a script and use a Slack API call so that the job logs show up inside of a Slack channel that's shared by a few different people so everybody can see what's going on. So yeah, integrations like that just become a script away. Okay, where are we up to? So this was the notification file delivery. The next thing is a real quick one, job history search. I'm not going to show you the next slide. I'm just going to show you inside of P5. So in the job history window, we have quite a few jobs. It's displaying 1 to 50 of 75 jobs, it's telling me here. If I'm interested in when did I archive that clouds folder, I can just come in here and type cloud, and it will just match all of the jobs which have got cloud in the description. You can search on anything that shows up in the plan name or operation column there. So this just makes it really easy to filter down on the jobs that you're interested in to see if everything's been running okay. This window can also be filtered according to archive plans or backup plans that have run, or restore jobs and so on. But you can also filter based on names. Okay. So that's a real simple one, but another nice thing to have. And the slide basically tells you the same story about where to go find it. So something real easy to do. Next thing we have is archive volume inventories. This is something that quite a few people have asked us to implement. I'll show you the next slide. So you now have a window that allows you to set up an inventory for a single volume. and then you can choose the fields that you want to go into the inventory file, and then we generate one of these tab separated files. So the way this works, I mean, typically you might want to do this for a tape that you've been archiving to. Maybe it's full, maybe it's got 100,000 files on it, and you just want some kind of audit inventory of the contents of that tape. So you can do that now. You go find that tape or volume. Here's my, this is a disk-based volume. I'm just using that for speed so I can show you this stuff quickly. So there's an option here to create an inventory for the highlighted volume. You can only highlight a single volume. This works one volume at a time. This actually, it runs as a job. So like I said, there might be 100,000 files on this volume that are spread across different archive indexes. So we work out which indexes we need to query, and then we query them and we pull out the information that you ask for. So let's have the size and the checksum, just to keep it fairly small. Then we start our inventory job. That runs in the job monitor very briefly because this is disk-based volume and there's not much on it. And then the job ran, it said it created an inventory, and that inventory will be delivered to the places that I've asked it to be delivered to. So, whoops, I obviously closed my Finder window. So let's go open a new one, and it'll be in the log delivery. And it'll be the one at the top. So this is the 1822, and this is the inventory of everything on my that volume. So you can see the fields that I asked for. The file name is always included, so we've got the size and we've got the checksum, and that goes into the file. So you can now, with 7.3, you can now do that for any tape you want and get a complete audit of the contents of that tape, including, if you like, checksums that you could then go recalculate by reading the original assets off disk. You could do your own verification if you wanted to. You fill the tape up, you've got a load of MD5 checksums, you can go and compare that with the file system and have a script that deletes if everything looks okay. So it gives you lots of options. Okay, and then final bits to show you are miscellaneous things which go beyond the 5. So we've got 2 bonus things here. There are a few additional things in 7.3 that we felt are not worth covering in the webinar, but you'll see those on the website. So the first of the 2 miscellaneous things is this S3 Object Archive update. So our S3 Object Archive feature was added a little while ago. How long ago was that added, Joseph? Can you remember?
Half a year, February.
Oh, okay, 6 months-ish. So yeah. We've added the ability to do list objects in addition to list buckets, so that now if you're connecting to our S3 interface, you can now use a client, something like an FTP style client like CyberDuck, to see what's in the bucket. So we have some integrations being written against our S3 interface, but sometimes people just want to test it with something like CyberDuck. So let me explain what I'm talking about, because you may not be familiar with the feature. So this is part of the archive product, and it's called S3 Object Archive. So it's down here in the bottom left under Advanced. And what you can do with S3 Object Archive is you can create a bucket in P5, whereby P5 will behave just like a bucket in the cloud, except this is going to be an on-premise bucket hosted by P5 and backed by a tape library, for example. Probably the most useful way to use it. So what this allows you to do is have a tape library that you can write to using the S3 interface. So P5 publishes a bucket with the name that you can see here. Then we need some storage on disk in order to have a temporary store for stuff coming in and going out, because between the objects arriving and getting written to tape, or being restored from tape and being downloaded, they need to be stored somewhere. So that's our staging area. And then we have a target pool, which will be, your a bunch of tapes in a tape library or whatever storage you want to use. And then we provide you with an access key and a secret access key, the standard credentials that are used to access an S3 bucket. And then when that's all done, you can use a tool like CyberDuck, which I've got running here. So CyberDuck, if I just disconnect for a moment and go back to my bookmarks, I'm connecting to my P5 server either with HTTP on port 8000 or HTTPS on 8443, so the standard HTTP ports that P5 publishes. And I can just connect to one of these, see the bucket, and see the contents of the bucket. And what happens is we use the storage class, which is an attribute of an object in an S3 storage, to tell you whether the object has been archived off to tape, and when it will be called a Glacier storage class, or when it is still available on disk and not yet been flushed to tape. So
David,
to illustrate this for you, yeah.
David, it's maybe good to mention that behind this, what we are seeing there is a database. So it's like every bucket has its own index. So it's
Yes.
also visible and browsable on the server. So,
Yes.
okay.
So anything that you archive using the S3 interface will still appear in an archive index. So everything is it's an additional feature for P5 Archive. So the S3 interface is just a way to send objects to be archived, but once they're archived, they are still indexed in the archive index. You could restore them by browsing the archive index, or you can restore them by accessing them through the S3 interface. The whole reason for doing this is to make it easy for third-party products, very likely media asset management type products, to be able to archive to LTO through P5, but without you needing to write integrations to make that happen. So because S3 is an industry standard way of accessing storage, any product that wants to archive to the cloud will be able to do that using an S3 interface. And so they can now also do that to tape by using P5. It's really on-premise kind of cloud rather than a cloud, if you see what I mean. So just to illustrate how this works, I'm going to take this biking folder, which doesn't currently appear in our bucket. If I copy this folder in to the bucket, you'll see the files transfer. The biking folder now shows up, and under the biking folder, you can see currently these files all have the standard storage class because they are not yet flushed to tape, where they will need to be restored to be accessed. So standard storage means these are now still sitting in our staging area. And part of the configuration for the bucket is to have this quiescent time, which means that if everything's quiet for 1 minute, we will run an archive task to archive these files off to tape. So we will see a job running in a moment, within around a minute after we copied those files in. A job will run, it will flush those files back to tape, and then the storage class for the objects will change to Glacier, indicating that they need to be restored before they can be downloaded. So there's our job running on the left in the job monitor. Runs very quickly. You see we had an S3 archive job. I said I'm saying tape, but I'm using disk just for speed. And then if I refresh my window here, you can see these files are now showing as being in the Glacier storage class because they have now been flushed back to tape. So this means in order to download these files, I wouldn't be able to just drag them out of the window. I need to issue a restore via the S3 API in order to get them back on disk so I can download them. So I can do a restore from within CyberDuck. And again, this will create the API call against the S3 interface that P5 is providing. P5, after a minute after it doesn't see any further restore requests coming in, it will run a restore job, which means that these files will return to the standard storage class, and then they will be downloadable directly. So this is just the same as if you were uploading objects to an Amazon Glacier bucket in the cloud, and then requesting a restore of those objects so you could download them back again later. Except with Amazon, it takes about 12 hours. So if we wait a moment, we'll see the restore job running after that minute is up. And then we can refresh in here and we'll see those objects as the standard storage class, and then I'll be able to download them again. So if I get somewhere ready to download them too, I'll just put them in this window here. So you see there's the restore job running. It's restoring 4 files. So that would be pulling them back from tape back into our temp storage. I refresh in here. They're now standard storage again, which means I can download them. And it's asking me if I want to buy it, make a donation. So yeah, there's the 4 files, the 4 JPEG files. So they've had a round trip into our S3 bucket to tape and back again. So I've given you a fairly comprehensive description of this feature there, but the new part is that you can use a tool like CyberDuck to play about and test it, as I just did, before you test it with your MAM software, archive software, or however you want to make use of it. So the S3 Object Archive, as it's called, is part of the standard archive product. So anybody that has P5 Archive can do the whole bucket thing that I just showed you. And then the final new feature that we've got in our presentation here is optimizing throughput when writing to disk containers. So what this is all about is you can configure P5 to archive to a cloud bucket, like a real cloud bucket, using the S3 protocol. In this case, P5 is acting as an S3 client rather than a server. Now, we've seen recently a lot of customers using on-premise S3 storage that is usually very fast, quite high-end storage. And when accessing this kind of storage over very fast networks, we put 10 gigabit plus here, then we needed to do a bit of optimization so that we could output data at a speed that was okay for this high-speed on-prem S3 storage. Because we were previously optimized just for cloud storage, which is a lot slower, actually going across the public internet to get to cloud storage. So yeah, we've done some optimizations which are available when you've got a pool which is backed by container storage. So under additional options, we now have this throughput optimization setting, which you can increase the number of threads that we use to create containers before they are passed off to the S3 storage. So this is really quite a technical feature. The use case for knowing if you need to play with it is if you're archiving across the LAN to high-speed S3 object storage using 10 gigabit plus Ethernet speeds, then you might need to do this throughput optimization. But you should contact your local support person to be sure that this is the right thing to tune, because there is also a number of upload streams that you can configure in the S3 client object settings. So there's a couple of things that you can tune, and you really need to know what you're doing to play about with them. But yeah, we thought we'd mention that feature in this presentation as well, because it's something that is going to be very useful to a certain subset of our users. So with that, we reach the end of the new stuff that we want to show you. So as always, you can download the latest release from the Download P5 URL and grab your evaluation license. And now we'd like to go to your questions. So Vladlen says hello. So hello to you as well. And then he asks, could you tell me, please, will this version have restrictions on Synology? TV would like to change storage and would like to use P5 on Synology. So yeah, the answer is yes, you can use P5 on a Synology. It's the same software that would run on any other platform. The main restriction on Synology is that we can't support LTO tape hardware via a SAS interface because the operating system doesn't allow that. That said, LTO drives are available with Ethernet or even USB connectors, which do work on a Synology. So if you, Vladlen, if you want to use tape on your Synology, then there are some restrictions. You say our TV would like to change storage and would like to use P5 in Synology. Yeah, there's no reason not to. There's a recent version of P5 in the Synology store. I think 7.24 is in there at the moment, right, Joseph? And 7.3 will arrive when
it takes 1 month, maybe a few weeks. It takes because they're always behind us with the releasing of new releases. So it will take maybe 4 weeks. But you can download it from our side also. So then you don't have to go.
Yeah, you can do. You can't do a manual installation on a Synology, but you can run a Docker, I think is the case.
Yeah, you could run a Docker, yeah. But to test P5, if this is a new customer, then to test P5, the previous version is absolutely okay, and it makes it much more easier to install it over the
very easy to install using the App Store. Yeah. Okay, so that's that one. Just removing the question, but I hope I clicked on the right one. Remove. Right, Andrew asks, does the new job log and job inventory capability work for all types of job or just archive jobs? The job log, how does it work for backup jobs, Joseph?
It's backup job doesn't have an inventory.
Job log.
Yeah, job log, yes, but doesn't have an inventory.
Yeah. So you'll see the job log.
Yeah.
So just to go back in there, if you're looking at the job history and you're looking at the job like this one, then you will have the job log download available for any kind of job. The job inventory is something specific to archive, so you won't see that one. Yeah. And I'll just click delete on that one. So follow up, is the new job inventory download only for the job just run, or can it download all the contents of the archive backup pool, i.e. over a series of separate backup archive jobs? Not quite understanding the question. Is the job inventory download only for the job just run? Yes, so when you run an archive job, we will output the inventory that relates to that particular job. So if that job saves 100 files, you'll get 100 entries in the TSV file. The other inventory that you can get through the web interface is an inventory of an entire volume. So if you wanted to get the entire contents of a pool, of an archive pool, you would have to do an inventory per tape volume for each tape. It's not possible to do inventories for backups. It's only for archive. So I hope that clarifies that one, Andrew. Otherwise, ask again. And then Andrew says, now you've answered my second question. The download inventory feature is just for one job and one volume at a time, not a whole pool. So yes, that's correct, Andrew. So I'm glad that was clarified. Okay, so Vladlen has a follow-up. Are you recommending to use it on Synology or Linux is better? It depends on your needs. It's quite a specific question. You might want to have a conversation with a sales partner, Vladlen. The choice between Synology and Linux is really down to if you're going to use that as your storage server where you're going to share storage to network clients, then which one do you want to use? Do you want to use a Synology or a Linux box? We run on either in just the same way. It's the same software running on either. So there are other reasons why you would need to choose Synology or Linux, not just what P5 runs best on. Christoph, hi Christoph. What about the search string feature, which is not case sensitive anymore? Yeah, no, this feature, so there is an additional feature where when you're adding fields to your archive index to keep metadata, you can now have a case insensitive fields so that you don't need to know the correct case to search. This is still in the product, Christoph, but we just didn't choose to talk about it in the webinar because there are some more features that are in 7.3, but they're not so interesting for the public to talk about. So yeah, that's still there. Okay, so that's understood. Andrew says, thank you. Frederic, regarding the first question from Vlad, it's also possible to put P5 in a mainstream Linux machine with a SAS3 interface. On my side is quality of service implemented in P5. So yes, it's possible to put P5 on any regular Linux OS and host with SAS interfaces. So that's not a problem. Many of our customers do that. Is QoS, quality of service, implemented in P5? We have a little bit of quality of service in that we have the ability to throttle the amount of network bandwidth used with the hosts that we're communicating with. So like my Linux, my server that I'm using to demo to you today is a Linux machine, and it's using the Mac as a client. So it's sending data to the Mac that you're looking at because the Mac is configured as a client. And we have like a bandwidth limitation here that means that we measure the amount of bandwidth available between the client and the server and then use delays in between the packets to reduce the load. So I guess you could call that quality of service, otherwise not. So any additional QoS that you need would have to be implemented in network hardware. Right, so that's that one. And we're just getting a little bit long, maybe. Just going to see if there's one other question here, probably the last one from Adam. Can an archive job inventory be automatically downloaded into a client folder as part of the job? Yeah, that's what's happening with the file delivery, Adam. So where I had my folder here for log delivery, every time I run an archive job, in fact, let me just run one super quick. So I'm going to go data and just download, just archive one JPEG, which won't take very long. So as a consequence of that, we'll see a new inventory show up at the top of the list here. So it's 1344. So when that job runs, we'll see a file with a 1344 timestamp. There it is. And that contains my TSV information for the one file that we archived, right? So we get the inventory and we get the job log to say that we archived one file. So without doing anything, it's automatically delivered onto the client exactly as you described in your question. So hope that makes you happy. So that's Adam's question. A last minute question comes in from Andrew, who says, do you have an installer for TrueNAS devices, i.e. the turnkey systems? The normal Linux can't be installed because Linux is significantly locked down on these systems, and the manufacturer seems to require backup software. Publishers have an approved implementation. So we're running in Docker, aren't we, on TrueNAS? There's a Linux-based and a FreeBSD-based. TrueNAS, I think one of them is being discontinued. But we're running on both. Yeah, Joseph. So
yes, yeah.
And we always run in a container. Is that right?
One is jail. The older one, the FreeBSD version is a jail. The name for container is jails. So we are running in a jail, and on the newer release, on the Linux release, we are running in a container.
Okay. Yeah. Does that help you, Andrew? If you've got any follow-up, then type it in. And he says, great, thank you. Okay, good. Okay, so that's all the questions that you've asked us. Let's just put the slide back up. So thank you for your attention and your interest in the product, showing up for our webinar today. We really appreciate that. We are always very available for questions, looking in detail at issues or pre-sales, configurations, and so on. We're always open to spending some time with you to go through those. So please get in touch if that's going to be useful for you. But apart from that, just thanks for coming. We'll send you the recording and the slides, etc. Thanks, Joseph, for
thank you, David,
being my wingman. And we'll see you all in the next webinar. Cheers.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Thank you, David. Bye-bye, guys.